everyone. Jim Biringer here, NHLRumors.com. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below. Appreciate everybody who's followed along for our NHL trade deadline coverage. We had a video out on Friday about some of the movement that happened prior to the deadline, what was going to come, and obviously the big one, Nazem Kadri going from the Calgary Flames to the Colorado Avalanche, and I think that's something everybody expected or at least hoped would happen. We know Thursday night it was really close. And it didn't get across the finish line, whether it was Murray Edwards, the owner, whether it was Don Maloney just stepping in after Craig Conroy laid the foundation. We know the Flames and the Avalanche had been talking all week. That the Avalanche had been scouting all the Flames games throughout the week, same with the Flames. So they tried to get it there. And then Nazem Kadri, as of Friday, said, trade me to Colorado. It was at the top of his list. That's the place he wanted to go. We know Montreal tried. We know Carolina tried. But once Colorado was involved and it was really close, he said, let's get this done. Let's get this across the finish line. And Craig Conroy did with Chris McFarland, give up a conditional first and a second, give up Victor Olofsson, Max Caron. And Calgary retains 20% of Kadri's salary, and that's really good. And I think that's one of the big blockbusters. Calgary didn't want to really retain on Kadri, but they had to. They chose to. They didn't get up to 50%, but Colorado made it work. Thought Colorado would say, oh, that's not going to happen. I guess he's going to be there. But there was some disappointment from Kadri's end that it didn't get done. Nick Waugh's there now. So Colorado did really good, and they moved out Samuel Girard. And once they did that, you kind of opened the door for Kadri to go back home to Colorado. I know he's from the Toronto area, but again, that's where he won a Stanley Cup, impact player for the Colorado Avalanche. And I like this trade for them. And that was one of the big blockbusters of deadline day. We also saw Brayden Schenn go from the St. Louis Blues to the New York Islanders. They give a first and third and Jonathan Drouin to St. Louis. St. Louis had high asking prices not only for Schenn, but for Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, Jordan Binnington. Justin Falk goes to Detroit. So St. Louis starts their rebuild, retool, trying to get younger, moving some players. A team to keep an eye on moving forward is the Blues because of Thomas, because of Kyrou, because of Binnington. Again, where was the market for Binnington? We think Vegas tried. Again, Vegas denies they didn't try to go after goaltender. Nick Dowd was a small depth piece for the Vegas Golden Knights, but I feel like there was more to be done for the Vegas Golden Knights, especially in that goalie position. You're kind of seeing how the defense and the goalies are struggling right now. So that's a piece for me that I was watching for at the trade deadline. Didn't happen, but I think these are things that are going to be revisited. We know Montreal tried on Robert Thomas. We know Buffalo tried on Robert Thomas. We know Utah, Seattle in there as well. We know Jordan Kyrou, the Montreal Canadiens connection as well. So the Buffalo Sabres, again, got Colton Parayko. He wants to stay out west. Is it LA? Is it Anaheim? Is it San Jose? Teams like that. Could he stay in the Central? So I think St. Louis is going to have some activity come the draft, come free agency. There's going to be some movement there. Seattle, I think, again, they signed Jordan Eberle. They bring in Bobby McMahon. Now let's see if they get Ellie Tolvanen signed. What about Jaden Schwartz, Jamie Alexiak, players like that? Do they stay? I know they want to take a big swing at it. Now or never for this team. They got to get back into the playoffs. Jason Botterill's got to be aggressive here with this team, get them into playoffs. Utah, we know they hit the big swing from Calgary to get Mackenzie Weegar. And again, Calgary, they move out Kadri, move out Weegar. They already moved Anderson to Vegas. Maybe Vegas already made their deadline moves. But, Rasmus Anderson needs a new contract with Vegas. What's that extension going to look like? Feels like he's going to sign there, but it hasn't been done yet. They're going to talk about it, try to collect some cap space to get that one done and announced in the summer. But Calgary, again, you move Kadri, you move Weegar, you move Anderson in the next transitional phase for Craig Conroy and company as they get to the new building. Does Blake Coleman go in the summer? Probably want to go to Dallas, probably want to go to Tampa, couldn't get it done. LA Kings, they move out Warren Fogle to Ottawa, and then Corey Perry goes to Tampa, so that kind of took them out of the mix. And then once Dallas got Michael Bunting, and they already gotten Tyler Myers for Vancouver, that kind of took them out of the mix for Coleman, and the price for Coleman was really high. Maybe something they revisit in the summer as the transitional phase goes on. Again, Vancouver Canucks, they moved out Connor Garland. You moved out Quinn Hughes, Tyler Myers, Kiefer Sherwood, but more was need to be done. Surprised Teddy Bluger didn't go. Evander Kane, was there a market for them? Did they even put their players out there? Something to watch for the Vancouver Canucks. Elias Pettersson moving forward. What are they going to do with some of their players? What's their direction? What's the management's direction? The Edmonton Oilers, another team. Yeah, they added Jason Dickinson. Yeah, you added Connor Murphy. You already made the trade for Tristan Jarry. Defensively, they finally started looking a little better. What's Darnell Nurse's future with the Edmonton Oilers moving forward? That's a player I wonder about. According to some reports out there, he they were trying to move him at the deadline. Just things didn't go that far, but he has full no move clause, so he's going to have to ask to where he wants to go. Again, another team, you stay north of the border, right? Now we're starting to hear silly season talk. Stay with the Oilers for a minute. What happens with Connor McDavid in a couple of years? Does he want to stay? Is he going to stay? And that's chatter that's been going on since he signed his contract, even before it. And I even said this, whenever he signed a new extension, this is all the talk they're going to be, because if the Oilers don't make a deep run, if they don't win, is he going to want out? You got to pump the brakes on that a little bit, because, again, in a weak Pacific division, the Edmonton Oilers have a chance to make a run here, surprisingly or not. This is what they can do. Again, Austin Matthews' future in Toronto. Toronto moved out some players. They moved out Scott Lawson's, the Bobby McMahon's, Nick Waz. OEL stayed. OEL, interesting case. They had some deals on the table, but OEL, family matter. His wife's pregnant, probably due to give birth, so doesn't want to move. But he was open to some movement there, and now everybody's talking about Austin Matthews, and they're talking about a lot of the Americans north of the border because of what happened at the Olympics. A lot of the geopolitics of everything that we're not going to get into here. I know Brady Tkachuk's always been a name that's been out there for a while, ever since what Matthew happened. But Big Walt, Keith Tkachuk kind of kiboshed everything when he said, hey, these are two different situations. Brady has said he wants to win there. He wants to play there. But is the noise and all the stuff going around with Team USA and everything, the certain media aspects and the negativity around him and being a captain there, is he going to want out? Or more American players going to want out? Austin Matthews is giving no indications right now that he wants to leave Toronto. But it's a conversation that's going to have to happen at the end of the year. The Montreal Canadiens, obviously, we talked about it. They were in on a bunch of players. Kent Hughes came out during the French portion of his press conference. It talked about how they were, working the phones, working on a deal. Didn't get across the finish line. We're close to making a deal. Some players that weren't out there trying to help his team. Elliot Friedman has said it's a forward. Dave Pagnon in the fourth period said a forward, potentially a right shot defenseman. Let the speculation begin. And I know a lot of people want to talk about that. But again, no one really is going to know until it's done. And I think that's what Kent Hughes wants. And he hopefully gets it done at the draft. And that's when Montreal does their damage. And they stick to their plan. They've been sticking to their plan under Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes. And they've added every year at the draft or sometime in the summer. They don't try to hit big at free agency. But again, they tried to move Patrick Laine. It just couldn't work out. There were teams that could have used him. But again, what happens with Patrick Laine? Does he get a small extension? Does he just sign with another NHL team? Does he go back home? So a lot of moving parts with the Montreal Canadiens as well. Ottawa Senators added Warren Foegele. They tried to get a right shot defenseman. They couldn't. They were in on Anderson. They had talked to teams, potentially about adding a defenseman because, again, Nick Jensen still recovering from hip resurfacing surgery. They make a couple of minor moves, but again, this team needs to take this next step and get to the back-to-back playoff appearances, similar with the Montreal Canadiens. We know what Detroit did, but again, everybody's talking about Detroit taking that next step. Does Steve Yzerman really believe in this team? Are the Montreal Canadiens right there? Similar with the San Jose Sharks. Are they right there? Again, these are teams that could do damage in the offseason because we know the free agency class isn't that great, so maybe they make some trades then. That's when the trading season could really take off. Again, you look at Nashville Predators, new GM coming in. What do they want to do? Do they want to move off from Barry Trotz's guys of Jonathan Marchessault, Eric Haula, the Steven Stamkos, the Ryan O'Reillys? Barry Trotz said on Friday he was taking calls. He got good offers. Everybody was calling on Stamkos. People were calling on Marchessault and Haula. He had good offers on. Same with Ryan O'Reilly, but he felt that the team was in such a position where it's so hard a balancing act. You're right there, but should you fall out? We saw Washington was right there. They moved on from John Carlson. They moved on from Nick Dowd. They're trying to get younger, take the team into that next phase beyond the Ovechkin era, right? Similar to what Penguins are trying to do, trying to set themselves for the post-Malkin Crosby era. And that's something to watch at Pittsburgh. Malkin, no deal yet. They've been talking. It's going to be something after the season. And that's what Kyle Dubas says. It's going to be after the season. We'll see how long it is. It's part of a staple there in Pittsburgh. But, what do they do in Nashville? Teams have been calling. It's been a sell-off. Hasn't gone the way it's supposed to. Yes, the team's playing better. But how many of these pieces can actually we know Stamkos wants to go to a contender, ideally back to Tampa, similar to the way McDonough is. I think Tampa missed in adding a defenseman as well. They probably tried, but prices were high. Carolina missed out an opportunity to add a center. They need a second-line center. Don't think they need a goaltending. But if the prices are too high for Eric Tulsky, who's taken a couple of big shots over the last couple of years, and again, it's not his fault that the players didn't want to stay. He just mismanaged the Jake Getzel situation a little bit, prioritized some other players over him. Mikko Rantanen's situation, he knew Rantanen wasn't going to sign there. And again, it comes down to the owner who doesn't want to pay these guys. And that's a problem in Carolina. When it gets to the point where these guys need to be extended to big-time contracts, he doesn't want to pay. The players want to play in Raleigh. So a missed opportunity for the Carolina Hurricanes as well at the trade deadline. New Jersey Devils didn't really do anything. They had some Nemiches out there, but they want an impact type forward like a Jordan Kyrou, like a Robert Thomas, players like that. They're going to help them to impact the top six, like similar to a Marchessault, similar to a Stamkos, right? Impactful type player, not a William Eklund, who was another playmaker out of San Jose Sharks. Again, not available. Didn't happen. Wasn't talked about. Have the teams talked about things in the past? Yes. We know the veto Dougie Hamilton trade. The Sharks need defensemen that are signed. They moved off a defenseman. So yeah, the teams talked probably, but it wasn't about those players. And if Nemec wants to leave, he's open to it. RFA, new contract, change agents. The Devils would be wise to keep him and move Hamilton, which I think is going to happen, as I stated all year long. For those that don't believe and want to believe other people, I've stated that Hamilton will be here through the season on my hits on Rob Peterson's show on SiriusXM NHL Network Radio, on TSN 690 as well. But again, it's not a matter of how long he'll be there. It's when. Like, he doesn't want to talk to the media anymore, denying media requests. Like, look, $7.4 million signing bonus is a lot for a lot of teams. Get that paid and go from there. I think that the summer is when the Devils are going to make some moves. They got to change up some looks. They got to get tougher, got to get impact forward up top. I also expect the way Cody Glass is playing, he had just signed a 2-year extension. He's eligible for an extension. That's something the Devils are going to look at. They really like this player. Sheldon likes this player. Again, ownership and the Devils are lockstep. So if that's the case, even though the handcuffs were kind of on, even though, he really didn't do a lot, maybe that's the plan all along. Try to get that hockey trade. And if it wasn't there, strike at the draft during free agency. But they really like that player, Cody Glass. I wouldn't be shocked he stays there in New Jersey on a short-term deal. Bobrovsky wasn't going anywhere out of Florida. They're working on getting an extension. He was never leaving there. He always said he wanted to stay there. Again, his name was brought up with a lot of these top guys, but you got to follow the market. You got to understand where he wants to be. Wanted to be there. He went there for a reason in 2019, tried to get his boys there. Florida may look at the backup goalie position in the summer. Do they move on from Daniil Tarasov? Do they try to bring in another guy to pair with Bob, who's the future, like of Wallstedt out of Minnesota? But who are they giving up? Do they have that first-round pick and prospect that Minnesota wants, right? What happens in New York with Vinny Trocheck? Does he finally get traded? Alexis Lafreniere, does he get moved? Adam Fox, does he feel welcome there? He wasn't really non-committal about his future. Mika Zibanejad, what about the goaltender up there? So a lot of moving parts in New York, in that area. Again, the Islanders were really aggressive. Do want to reward the group. You add Palat, you add Seuss, you added Shen. Do they move? They're probably going to move off Shabanov. They're probably going to move off Duclair in the summer. So the trade deadline, again, a lot of no movement, no trade clauses. That really held up a lot of things. The Blues probably had a lot of offers that were vetoed. The new LTIR rules, the new playoff salary cap, there wasn't a lot of movement. And again, the double retention. And again, it's funny how people forget things, and it's a lot of revisionist history, but everybody complained that about double retention and how these aggressive GMs figured things out. And all of a sudden they don't like it because they couldn't get activity done. Well, which is it? Do you like it or you don't like it? Do you like teams winning or you don't like teams winning? It's not, again, I say this. It's not the aggressive team GM's fault, like the McCrimmons, like the Zitos, like the Breezewatts, teams like that who figure out a way to read the CBA and get around it or figure out how to utilize it to their best of their ability. You need those people doing it too. And if you don't have it, don't punish everybody because you don't have it. Figure out a way to be like them. We like the aggressive GMs. And then you have to ask yourself, why is your GM not like that? So the deadline comes. Again, there's going to be players available. There's going to be player movement this summer. Probably some trades. We'll see what happens with this. Again, every year we hype it up. They say it's going to happen and it never does. Let's see if the price tags come down. Do teams still stay on their price tag? Because if they stay on their price tags, we're going to have the same conversations about the same players next season, heading throughout the season to see if there's going to be movement. But at the trade deadline come and gone, Jim Biringer, NHL Rumors. Guys, please like this video, subscribe, comment below. Take care, and we'll be back again real soon.